Yeah, we can start, Swami.
Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. In our last session, we have done 7th, 8th and 9th shloka. Manachakshu adehe viyukta swayam yaha Manachakshu adehe manachakshu adihi Manachakshu adehe agamya swarupa sanitya upalabdhi swarupa aham atma. Here Hastamlaka very clearly says that self is other than the body, the mind, the sense organs, the organs of action, the pancha pranas, the pancha koshas, everything. It is other than that. So manachakshu adehe viyuktaha. So viyuktaha different from that. And now we are all experts because we have come up with this reasons why we are not the body, and many of those reasons can be applicable here, why we cannot be the sense organs or the pranas or the mind, the intellect. So here again Astamlaka very clearly says it is other than all these, so other than the panchakoshas. And then he also says that manachakshu adehe manachakshu adi. This self which is other than the panchakosha, other than all that thing, it is, then he says, mind of the mind, eye of the eye. That means it is that because of which the insentient, inert, non-living, jada, body, sense organs, pranas, mind and intellect get enlivened, appears sentient, appears living, enlivened. This pure self, this pure consciousness, this Atman powers that. So, manachakshu adehe viyuktaha, manachakshu ade, manachakshu adihi. It is the mind of the mind, eye of the eye, and so on. That means it is that which enlivens all this, though they are all inert. And then, manachakshu adehe agamya swarupaha. And then the very important thing is that all that which is illumined by consciousness, which is enlivened by consciousness, the gross physical body, the sense organs, the organs of action, the pranas, the pancha pranas, and then the mind and the intellect. They are of course all illumined by that, by the pure self, by Atman. And none of these have the capacity to illumine the self. So manachakshu adehe agamya swarupaha. Agamya, it is beyond them. They cannot illumine the pure self because they actually derive the sentiency to that pure self, to that pure consciousness. And then he says that sa aham nitya upalabdhi swarupa atma. So that which illumines, which enlivens all that, that self I am. Then in the next shloka, ya ekah vibhati swata shuddha chetaha prakasha swarupa api nana eva dhishu sharava udakastah yata bhanu ekah sa nitya upalabdha swarupa aham atma. So here again, like the example he gives here is that one sun which is reflected in different bodies of water. So many pots are there, so many water pots are there, sun is reflected in that. Of course, the pots are many, pot filled with water, they are many, and therefore the reflections are also many of that sun. But sun is one alone. Eka vibhati swatah, shuddha chetaha, prakasha swarupa api nana eva dishu. Similarly, as in different bodies of water, the sun appears differently, simultaneously, it is reflected. So also, the same pure self is reflected in different intellect. Prakasha swarupa api nana eva dhishu. So in different intellect, mind intellect equipment, it appears differently. So depending upon the qualities of the mind and intellect, so it appears differently. As in different pots also, there it appears many, though one it appears many. Though oneself, because it is reflected in different intellect, it appears as if it is many, but it is only one. Reflections can be millions and millions of reflection, but that which is reflected can be one. If we enter into a hall full of mirrors, one person enters there, that person's reflection will be in millions, because reflection inside the reflection will be one mirror kept opposite to each other, and we are standing in between. So our image is reflected in this mirror, and that again is reflected in the other mirror, and again that is reflected in this, and it will go on like that, and so many thousands of mirrors are there. So the reflections are in millions, but the object that is reflected is only one. Similarly, the mind intellect equipment may be in billions, but that which is reflected in that, the pure self, is only one. As many different pots are there filled with water, and we have millions of reflection of the sun, but the sun itself is only one. So this is comprehended by, known by Shuddha Chetaha. Shuddha Chetaha, the one who has purified his mind. So Swata Shuddha Chetaha. Sa Eka Vibhati Shuddha Chetaha. For the one whose mind has been purified sufficiently, so only such a one can comprehend this. Otherwise, because our mind is clouded by the impressions, the sanskaras, the vasanas that we have brought from the past life, so it obscures the direct comprehension. We do not have the awareness of our own pure self because of the obstruction created by our own past impressions and vasanas. So the reflection also in different mind intellect equipment will be different according to what they have acquired, the impressions they have acquired, the vasanas they have acquired, the sanskaras they have acquired from the past. Different bodies of water, clear water, clean water, dirty water, turbid water. So the reflections will be different. Sun reflected in that will be different. But again, sun is not affected by that. Neither the reflection. The reflection appears different, but sun is not. Sun is the same. Sun is not affected by that. Similarly, the pure self also reflected in all this remains the same. It is not affected by the quality of the mind and intellect in which it is reflected. It is one, ekameva advitiya. Then, in the 9th shloka, it was said that yatha aneka chakshuhu prakashah ravihi na kramena prakashi karoti prakashyam aneka अनेकाः धीयः यः तथा एकः प्रबोधः सनित्योपलब्धि स्वरूप अहमात्मा. So here, if a doubt was there that how can simultaneously the same pure self can illumine everything. But again, Hastamala gives the example of the sun. sun doesn't illumine objects and the eyes in serial order one by one. Kramena, na kramena. Ravihi na kramena. Prakashi karoti prakashya. So it's simultaneously. When the sun rises, sunlight is there everywhere. It is simultaneously illumining all objects, and all objects can be seen by the eyes also simultaneously. It is not that if the argument is put that how can one charioteer ride many chariots simultaneously? It's not so. So similarly, how can Atma, the one self, one pure consciousness can illumine everything? So to dispel that, he has given again this example of the sun, which illumines everything simultaneously. So also in different mind-intellect equipment, this pure self also illumines everything simultaneously. It doesn't have to do it one by one. Ya eka prabodha anekaha dhiya kramena na prakashi karoti. So it is all this intellect, mind-intellect equipment is illumined, enlivened, illumined simultaneously. So that doubt is also cleared here. Then in the 10th shloka, a very important thing was cleared here. Vivasvat prabhatam yatha rupam aksham pragrunati nabhatam eva vivasvan yad abhata abhasayati akshamekah sanityoplabdhi swarupa aham atma. So illumined by the sun, of course, everything is visible to the eye, and that which is not illumined by the sun, it will not be visible to the eye. So that object will be in darkness and eyes cannot see. So whatever is illumined by the sun, of course, it will be visible to the eye. In the presence of the sunlight, everything can be seen. Similarly, the important factor here is that yat abhata vivasvan aksham abhaseti ekah. Now, illumined by what? The sun has the capacity to illumine. You see, sun's light is also a borrowed light, like moon's light is borrowed from the sun. Sun's illumination itself is also because of that consciousness. So, sun illumines all the objects, eyes are able to see that, but that which is not illumined by the sun, of course, eyes cannot see that. But then, sun itself is illumined by that pure consciousness. And because of which everything can be seen. Now, the important factor is that that sun which illumines everything, that sun cannot illumine the self. That sun has got the capacity to illumine everything, but it doesn't have the capacity to illumine the self from which it borrows the capacity to illumine everything. Its own illumination is a borrowed illumination. So it doesn't have the capacity. Moreover, sun's illumination has got its own limitation. Sun can illumine everything in this outside world, but it cannot illumine the intellect. So actually, intellect is also inert and insentient instrument, and that cannot be illumined by the sun. And intellect itself, being an inert object, intellect also cannot know the self, because intellect is also illumined by that pure consciousness, and therefore intellect cannot comprehend that pure consciousness. As the sun cannot illumine the intellect, and therefore the dream world is not illumined by the sun outside. Dream world is illumined by the light of consciousness. So the intellect cannot be illumined by the sun, intellect is illumined by the consciousness, and the same intellect cannot know the consciousness which illumines this intellect. Like in the light of the torch, we can see all the objects in the dark room, yet in the same light of that torch, we cannot see the battery cells on which that torch is functioning. So, intellect is illumined by the consciousness, is powered by the consciousness. Therefore, this intellect doesn't have the capacity to know that very consciousness which powers it, which illumines it. Therefore, after our sadhana, when we advance in our sadhana, we have to transcend our intellect also. To a great extent, intellect is a good instrument for us to help us to know very well what we are not. To analyze things, to use our viveka, for that intellect is very useful instrument for us. But having done that, then a time has to come when we transcend the intellect itself. Now, having done this, now we will take up a new shloka. A doubt can be expressed if this self, or the pure self, or pure consciousness, or Atma is untouched by anything. Then what about going to heaven or hell for gaining the fruits of good and bad actions, merits and demerits, papa, punya, and so on? So Hastamulaka clarifies this in the 11th shloka. Yatha surya ekopsu vane kaschalasu thira swapanyan yavat vibhavya swarupa chalasu prabhinna sudhishvevamekah sanityopalabdhi swarupo hamatma yatha surya ekah apsu anekah chalasu sthirashu api ananyat vibhavya swarupah chalasu prabhinna sudhishu evam ekah sanitya upalabdhi swarupa aham atma. Now, yatha eka surya chalasu apsu aneka sthirasu api ananyat vibhavyam swarupah. Now, again, Hastamraka gives the same example of the sun. Now, here he says that the sun is reflected in different bodies of water. And in different bodies of water, the condition of water is also different. In the pond, in the well, in the flowing river, in the ocean, in the flowing river, the water is continuously flowing. In the ocean, continuously the waves are coming up. The lake may be calm and quiet. In the well also, there may be no movement of water. So in steady water, the reflection is steady. In the moving waters, the reflection may be moving. So the quality and the state of water determines the quality of the reflection also. So sometimes it will be bright or dull depending upon the quality of water, whether it is steady or it is moving and all that. Similarly, now taking this example. So now one sun is reflected, different bodies of water, different qualities of water, moving, steady, then clear water, dirty water, turbid water, and so on. The reflection also will be different, like that. Similarly, evam ekachalasu prabhinnasu dhishu. Similarly, one intellect again is reflected in different mind-body equipment, or the subtle body, mind-body equipment, and that gives rise to different individualities. If it is only one consciousness reflecting in the millions and billions of mind-intellect equipment, so they should all be similar, But it is not so, because the mind intellect equipment itself varies from person to person, individual to individual. So the impressions that we have gathered from a past life and the sanskaras that has we have gathered from the past life, that determine the quality and texture of our mind intellect equipment. So that it is the same consciousness that is reflected, whether it is in an ignorant person, an intelligent person, a jnani. So these reflections are there, but the thing is that it again they are different. So same consciousness is manifesting, reflected in the mind intellect equipment of say Mahatma Gandhi, and same consciousness is reflected in the mind intellect equipment of say Hitler. So the consciousness is same that is reflected, whether it is Mahatma Gandhi or Hitler or Rama or Ravana, it doesn't matter. It is the same consciousness. Now the difference is in the quality of that mind intellect equipment. And the quality of mind intellect equipment depends upon the impressions that we have gathered, the vasanas, the impressions, the sanskaras that we have gathered in our past fields of experiences, in millions of lives that we have gathered. And therefore, we have got so many different individuals. They are not the same. Though the consciousness is the same, but the individuals are all different. Otherwise, the world would have been the very boring place. It is like we would be seeing only clones everywhere. They will be looking the same. Their mind intellect also will be the same. Everybody will be the same. So then it will be a boring place, isn't it? So if somebody is the hero, somebody has to be a villain also. That is determined by the quality of the mind and the intellect. So though the same consciousness is reflected, why there are so many different individualities, that is because of the individual mind intellect equipment, the quality of that is different because of the vasanas and the impressions and so on. Evam ekachalasu pravinnasu dhishu. But whatever may be the medium of reflection, as the sun is not affected by that, the continuously flowing river is there, the reflection of the sun will all be broken and all that thing, or in the oceanic waters where waves are coming up, or in a steady water of a pond or a well. But the sun itself is not affected by that, whatever happens. And if there is no body of water to reflect, yet nothing happens to the sun. That also doesn't mean that if there is a body of water for the sun to reflect, that doesn't mean that it is born at that time. No. Sun was there. If the body of waters are not there, the sun will still be there. If it is there, it will get reflected. If it is not there, it will continue to be there. But that doesn't mean that only when it is reflected, then it is born. No. Similarly, Jiva is not born when the mind and intellect equipment is there and the consciousness gets reflected in that. No, absolutely not. So this Jiva only imagines this bondage, and liberation also is all imagined only. So whatever the quality of the, another important thing is that the quality of the water may be different, but by the quality of water, the sun doesn't get affected. Its reflection also doesn't get affected. Only the water gets conditioned. If some dirt is added to the water, then water gets conditioned, but then we say it is a dirty water because of some dirt got mixed with that water. So water gets conditioned by all that things that is added to that. But sun itself is not affected by that. So contents of this mind intellect equipment doesn't affect the self. Whether that mind intellect equipment is carrying some inauspicious thoughts, dirty thoughts, or pure thoughts, that doesn't affect the self. That is an important aspect. It doesn't affect now the dirty water or something is there, or stinking water is there, or maybe fragrant water is there. Again, it neither affects the sun, nor even its reflection is also not affected by that. Because reflection is actually is an appearance. It has got no reality. Without the object that is reflected, it has got no reality. So that is also not affected. Neither the sun is affected. So only the water gets conditioned. Similarly, here also, in the mind intellect equipment also, the vasanas that are there, that may be good or bad vasanas, the thoughts may be good or bad, pure or impure, whatever it may be, the self doesn't get affected by that. And its reflection also doesn't get affected by that. So neither the sun is affected nor its reflection is affected. Similarly, the self is also not affected by the quality of mind and intellect, and self that is reflected in that mind intellect equipment, that also doesn't get affected. So for whom is this going to heaven and hell, swarga, narka, and suffering, all that thing? Actually, as regards the self is concerned, Atma is concerned, Atma is of course Ekameva Advitya, it has got nothing to do with this. Then the one who has realized the self, for him also there is nothing to do with this going to heaven or hell or anything like that. Nothing is there. And who is the one who is suffering? The one who is suffering is the ignorant one. Ignorant one who has got the notion of doership as well as experiencership. This is the one he finds himself sometimes in hell, sometimes in heaven, and sometimes he is joyful, sometimes he is miserable, and so on. It is only the ignorance that is the cause of all our problems. So, sometimes according to the karmas which they are determined, which is punya karma and papa karma, good and bad, meritorious karma and that which is not meritorious, and so on, papa punya. And then they are determined and then they suffer similarly. As regards the pure self is concerned, as regards the jnani is concerned, the question of this dvandvas, dharma, adharma, hinsa, ahimsa, papa, punya, swarga, narka, they are all in the realms of imagination only. There is no reality to that as far as the realized master is concerned, as far as the pure self is concerned. So, similarly, another example that comes to the mind is that, like space, the self doesn't get affected by anything. You see, self actually, the space actually occupies everything, but it doesn't get affected by anything. It is all pervading. Like this self also, space is also all pervading, and space doesn't get affected by anything. And the self is of course subtler than the space. That also doesn't get affected by anything. So from the standpoint, from the absolute standpoint, of course, there is no dharma, adharma, no hinsa, ahimsa, no swarga, narka, no papa, punya, nothing. These dvandvas, these pairs of opposites are only in the relative existence, not in the absolute existence. So they have got no existence absolutely. So when this buddhi, the pure self, is absolutely quiet, you see, by extinction of vasanas. When all the vasanas are destroyed, the self also shines forth. So, as one immediate reality. Now, Hastamala time and again emphasizes that sanitya upalabdha. So, this self is nitya upalabdha, immediate reality that is available to us. I am is the experience of everyone, whether he is a jnani or a ajnani. No one can deny this I, my existence, I exist. No one can deny that. This is immediate reality. Even if we are not a jnani, at least this thing we cannot deny. Our own existence, very clear, instant, immediately. That cannot be denied. So that is ever present. Sanitya upalabdha. That is what I am. In this Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Patanjali Muni defines yoga as yoga chitta vritti nirodha. That is the cessation of or the stillness of the thoughts, vrittis, the thought waves that come, negation or cessation or stillness of the thought waves that erupt, keep on erupting in our mind. So when this flow of thoughts are silenced, then the reflection of the absolute in the lake of our mind will be perfect, calm. See, clear as I am. So thought flow has stopped, but I have not gone to sleep. And at the same time, there is no negation of my own existence also. So that I am. My existence is there, though the thought flows have stopped. So that will be very clear without any disturbance. And then if you focus on this soul existence alone, on this reflection, that is the self, that is I am, aham. So it will also take us to our true aham. So that aham thought is also dropped. That also goes away. Only the awareness is there, awareness of existence, pure existence, which is the absolute truth or Brahman, whatever we call it. This I, which when identified with the upadhis or the conditionings that are superimposed on the self, that is what will breed many types of aham. One pure aham, when it is superimposed or when it gets identified with the different upadhis or conditionings of the panchakoshas, then it will start breeding different types of aham. So the one who is an angry aham, or a jealous aham, or a greedy aham. So different types of aham will be there, depending upon the quality of the mind intellect equipment. A happy aham, or a sad aham, or a sorrowful aham. So all these things will be there. So when this aham is separated from all the upadhis, all the conditionings, all the panchakoshas, when that is separated, all these limited upadhis, then of course it will shine as only Satchidananda aham. All the other aham is eliminated, and then only pure self, Satchidananda, pure existence, pure knowledge, pure awareness, and pure infinite bliss. So when this buddhi or the intellect, when it oscillates, its oscillation is what? Its oscillation is nothing but the thought waves. When this oscillates, when there is a movement of thoughts in that, then all the duality manifests. Then we get identified with dualities. The mind keeps moving from object to object, different thoughts, different objects, and then it keeps wandering into their respective fields. So depending upon the film that was uploaded on the projector, the film of course, the impression that we gathered from a past life, and that is projected to the lens of the sense organs. So then this movie goes on of the Jagat. On the screen of course, the substratum is the screen on which this movie is going on. As long as we are focused on the colors and forms, the play of light and sound, we are not aware of the screen. But while we are watching the play of light and sound, if that constant awareness of the screen in the background is there, then we'll not get carried away by the play of light and sound. If the awareness of the screen in the background is there. Because that awareness is not there, then we get carried away by the play of light and sound. So whatever the movie may be a tragedy or a comedy or action or whatever it may be, or horror, but constantly if the awareness of the screen is there, we don't get carried away by what is projected on the screen, whether it is a play of light and sound and so on. But when our awareness goes away, then of course we get carried away, and that is how we suffer. So similarly here also, this movie is uploaded and then we get carried away. As long as our attention is on the film, then of course we keep on suffering. The unchanging screen is not in our focus. When we are focused on the play of light and sound, the movie, that unchanging screen, the substratum, we are away from that. It becomes obscure for us. So as long as this cinema of duality is on, undisturbed or prashant, absolutely, that which is not opposed to shanti or ashanti, that is prashanta. That is not possible for us. So we have to begin our sadhana by being the witness to what is going on in our mind and intellect. We have not bothered about that. We continuously get carried away by what is projected by our mind or the intellect equipment, by the feelings and emotions, sentiments, and of course, the thoughts that are manifesting continuously in the intellect, the flow of thought. Now, if the same Atman is everywhere, then why are only few people like Shukracharya and Vamdev considered to be liberated, while as all others are in bondage? And this is the doubt now. In the 12th shloka, Ghanachanna drishtir ghanachanna markam yatha nishprabham manyate chati mudaha tata baddhavadbhati yo mudha drishte sanityopalabdhi swarupo hamatma. Ghanachanna drishtihi ghanachannam arkam यथा निष्प्रभम मन्यते च अतिमूढ़ः तथा बद्धवत् भाति यह मूढ़दृष्टेः स नित्योपलब्धि स्वरूप अहम आत्मा. Now here, यथा च अतिमूढ़ गणच्छन्न दृष्टः दृष्टि गणच्छन्न अर्क निष्प्रभ मन्यते. Now atimudha, the ignorant person, when there are clouds in the sky, so in ignorance he'll say that the clouds have covered the sun, or the clouds have swallowed the sun. Covered the sun, swallowed the sun, or the sun is no more to be seen, and all that is said by an ignorant one. But of course, because this person doesn't know that clouds cannot cover the sun. What is the size of the cloud and what is the size of the sun? It is impossible. Moreover, the important factor is that in the daytime, when he is looking up and he cannot see the sun, the clouds have covered up. So the clouds have actually covered up his eyes, and therefore he cannot see the sun. But the very fact that he can see the clouds also in the light of the sun. If that sunlight is not there, if the sun is not there, he cannot even see the clouds. Total darkness will be there. The very fact that he can see the cloud is because of the sunlight. So that proves the presence of the sun. The presence of the sun is very much there. But an ignorant person says that the cloud has covered the sun. But on the contrary, what has happened is that the cloud has covered my eyes. And therefore, the sun is not visible to me. But in that very light of the sun, I can see the clouds. If that sun was not there, then I wouldn't have been able to see the clouds also. So, The very fact that I can see the clouds proves the presence of the sun. So this is an important understanding that we have to get here. तथा बद्धवत भाति यह मूढ़ दृष्टे है. Now to the deluded also, not knowing the real self now, some who are ignorant, they consider themselves to be bound. Presence of the sun is proved by the fact that we can see the clouds. Similarly, though the self is all pervading, just because it is beyond the perceptions of the eyes, the sense organs, the mind and the intellect, that doesn't mean that it is not there. The very fact that our existence proves that. Similarly, of course, butter pervades through every drop of milk. But when you look at the milk, that butter is not seen. But it doesn't mean that that butter is not there in the milk. It pervades through every drop of that milk. Through a process of curdling and then churning, we can get the butter out. So there is a process of realizing the self by getting rid of, by disidentifying all the upadhis, the panchakoshas, and then transcending the intellect itself. That is the churning process, the curdling and the churning process to realize the self. So an ignorant person, of course, then he'll feel bound. He imagines bondage as well as imagines liberation, and then he gets into all types of practices. So as I had explained earlier, this is ropeless tying and untying of the donkey. So it is the light of the self that actually powers us. Now you see, this is very important thing. The one who says that I am ignorant, I am ajnani, on whose power he is saying that? That pure self only. So when we say aham ajnani, I am ignorant, even this sentence, this statement, in this statement also, that aham is very much there, I is very much there, I am ignorant, I don't know the self. That statement is also made with the power of that consciousness, that self alone, and in that also that aham is there, the pure self. Aham, I, is always there, which is none other than the pure self, which always illumines, shines forth. And the wonder of wonder is that this immediate experience of the self as aham is we are not aware of. We do say that, but this immediate experience of aham, which is undeniable, whoever it may be, whether it is an ignorant person, an atheist, unbeliever, this thing, the one who doesn't believe in the existence of an absolute truth, so unbeliever, so for him also, this is, of course, a direct subjective experience. So this unawareness is, of course, due to the ignorance, due to your own ignorance of ourselves, about the most immediate reality, I, undeniable and most immediate. Even if we discard everything else, we cannot discard our own self. That I notion cannot be discarded. That I am, that is undeniable. So that non-deniability of our own existence, that is so immediate, so simple. Even an ignorant person also can understand that much. Yet it is so immediate and so near and so real. And yet we ignore that and we keep looking elsewhere. Where is that Paramatma? Which place I have to go to find it? And all that thing. So that is the most immediate reality, and this petty ignorance, like this small clouds which cover up our vision. of our awareness. And never allows us to fall on the pure self, or to know the pure self, to have that immediate experience, or rather the immediate awareness of that pure self. Nija bodha rupaha, the real pure self. So what we have to do is that we have to only remove this cloud of ignorance, and then the vision will be very clear. The vision of our pure awareness and the focus will be on the pure self, that is just I, without the thought of I, the pure existence, which is always ever shining. That is the absolute reality that is ever shining. And we have seen that ignorance consists of avarana and vikshepa, veiling and projection, veiling of the absolute truth and projection of all that which is not real. So veiling of the real and then projection of the unreal. So in this projection comes the panchakoshas, the three states of awareness, the three states of consciousness, the waking dream and the deep sleep state. So here again in the waking dream and the deep sleep state is the avarana, veiling. And the dream and the waking state, they are the projection, the vikshepa. They are the projections of the names and forms. So they are these. Now, as the wind brings the clouds and wind takes it away also. Similarly, the thoughts manifest in the mind and then it goes away also. The mind imagines something and mind imagines something else also. It goes away. So it is the mind which imagines the bondage. Mind also imagines liberation. Mana eva manushanam karanam bandha moksha yoho. Mind is the culprit all the time. So thoughts of this bandha and moksha, they are only thoughts. Thoughts of bondage and thoughts of liberation. They are only thoughts, and they are due to the activity of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. When these three gunas become they are in imbalance, the creation begins. In the external world and within us also, it keeps on projecting various thoughts, various imaginations, it keeps on projecting. So they are all due to these gunas, these thoughts of bandha and moksha and everything. And of course, they are not real. And of course, gunas are due to Maya. Maya is Trigunatmika. So it is due to Maya only. So this pure self, the pure I, has got neither bondage nor liberation. Swami Vivekanand ji, when he was in US, in one place he was conducting a talk. Then he told the audience that you are free here and now. He told the audience, you are free here and now. You are the children of immortality. Then one girl got up from the audience and she told Vivekanand, sir, you are hypnotizing us. She got very much overpowered by this thought that you are free here and now. You are the children of immortality. And out of that, she got up and said, sir, you are hypnotizing us. Then Vivekanand told her, no, my dear child, I am dehypnotizing you because you are already hypnotized by Maya. So, darkness is real for us, not for the sun. Sun doesn't even know any such thing like darkness exists. Like once Darkness complained to the Lord that the sun is out to destroy me. So please tell him not to. So the Lord said, okay, I'll have a word with him. He called the sun. There is a complaint against you. What is the complaint? You are out to destroy that darkness. I am out to destroy the darkness. I don't even know who this darkness is. I have not even seen such a fellow. How can I destroy something which I don't even know or not have seen? I have not even seen that. Call him. So the darkness is not an entity. It is merely presence of light, absence of light. Light is an entity. Light is something, but darkness is nothing. Darkness is not something. It is merely absence of light. That's all. Light can be studied, the intensity and things like that. You can increase the power of the light, lower it, and all that thing, different thing. But darkness, what study you can do the darkness? It is like the mirage water. Darkness is not something that can be studied. Darkness is merely absence of light. That's all. So the nature of that sun is illumination, light. So there is no trace of any darkness. Therefore, for sun, there is no notion of darkness. Similarly, in the pure self, there are no ideas of bondage and liberation. As sun, there is no notion of darkness. There is no question of any ignorance or bondage for the self, and then a moksha or liberation for the self. So, self is the sun of all suns, and it can be never bound by anything. There is no question of any bondage. Forget about being bound by darkness of ignorance. In a manner of saying, from the relative standpoint, we do say that now that awareness of self is not there because of this ignorance, the darkness of ignorance. But as regards the self is concerned, it cannot be bound by darkness of ignorance, because there is no darkness for the self. As there is no darkness for the sun, there is no question of any darkness for the self. So, nor of this pure self will have no fear of death even in the dream. Once we are fully aware of this pure self, there is no question of any fear of death even in the dream. And we are familiar with the story of that yogi and Alexander who came to conquer India and then wanted to take that yogi to Greece, since he promised his people there. And finally, he couldn't take the yogi, and he also couldn't reach Greece. He couldn't take the yogi because yogi was in his own self, and he was least bothered to go anywhere, and there was no fear of death in him. Even when Alexander removed his sword, the yogi only smiled and said, "You can kill me, go ahead and do that." And Alexander himself got confused, because until then, his experience was anybody who stood in front of him and with his sword drawn, that fellow would tremble. And here is a man smiling at him, "No, you can kill me, go ahead and kill me." That is the fearlessness that comes from the knowledge of the self. You see, Swami Vivekananda says, there is only one dharma to be taught, and that dharma is dharma of nirbhayata, fearlessness. That's all that is to be taught. Because it is the bhaya or the fear that is cause of all the problems in this world. Fear is the cause of all the unrighteous action, all the sins and everything. So the only dharma that has to be taught to people is the dharma of nirbhayata, the religion of fearlessness. Now, sadhana, according to Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi, he gives a beautiful sadhana. This is the antaranga sadhana of Shravana, Manana and Nidhyasana. To become keenly aware of the pulsation of aham within, in the heart, is the Shravana sadhana, pulsation of aham, exclusive to all other thoughts. That is the Shravana sadhana, according to him. And then putting effort again and again to hold on to that awareness is the mananam or reflection, Shravanam mananam. And then constant absorption in that aham is nididhyasana or contemplation. This is aham graha upasana. This is antaranga manana shravanam, shravana manana and nididhyasana. Now, having said that, another probable doubt could come up. If Atman is considered all pervasive, then it may be attached to each and everything. If it is not all pervasive, then it is limited by space, then it cannot be the self also. So what is the correct one? To clarify that, in the 13th shloka, Hastamalaka says, Samasteshu vastushvanusyutamekam samastani vastuni yam yamna sprushanti viyadvat sada shuddhamachhasvarupam sanityopalabdhi swarupo hamatma samasteshu vastushu anusyutam ekam samastani vastuni yam nasprishanti viyadvat sada shuddham achhasvarupam sanitya upalabdhi swarupa aham atma. Now, samasteshu vastushu yam samastani nasprishanti. Now here Astamlaka uses the example of space. Space is all pervasive. It pervades in and through everything and being, and yet it remains untouched by everything and being. It pervades to the entire creation. So this example he has given, and the space doesn't get affected by that. We'll come to the different examples of that also in space. Sada Shuddha Acha Swarupam. So it is the nature of this space to remain untouched, alipta by anything. In the space, the rain falls, it doesn't get wet. Space doesn't get wet by rain. It doesn't get burned by fire. It doesn't get blackened by soot also. Nothing of that happens to the space. So similarly now, it can be compared with the space of consciousness, Chidakasha, space of consciousness or pure consciousness, pure awareness, pure self. So like space is untouched by, it is not blackened by the soot. Similarly, this pure self, space of consciousness, is not blackened by the mohamala. Mohamala, that is the blemish of delusion. As the space is not blackened by the soot, so also the space of consciousness, pure self, pure aham, I, that is what we call are, that is not blackened by mohamala or the soot or the blemish or the dirt of delusion. As the fire cannot burn the space, so also Krodhagni, the fire of anger, cannot burn this pure self or the pure consciousness. You see, similarly, rain cannot touch the space, cannot wet the space, so also the Vishaya Rasa, the taste of all the objects of indulgence, cannot touch the space of consciousness or the pure self. You see? So the space, all the clouds are in the space, but then space is not attached to any cloud. Clouds keep moving in the space, but they are there, but space has got no attachment to any clouds. The self also, because of Maya, it appears to be indulging in some bhoga, appears to be as if having bhoga, being a bhogi or bhokta. But this bhokta bhava, karta and bhokta bhava, it is abhokta and akarta, but this bhokta and karta bhava, it is only an appearance. It is not in reality. The self is not affected by that. It is Sakshi Swarupa. Then the space is, of course, the substratum of the Triloka. And yet it is untouched by all that is there in Triloka. They are all suspended in space, but is not affected by that. And the space of consciousness, Chidakasha, is the substratum of Ananta Koti Brahmanda. As the space is not touched by anything, similarly, the space of consciousness, Chidakasha, is untouched by this Ananta Koti Brahmanda. Actually, this Ananta Koti Brahmanda is only a superimposition, only an imagination. That's all. As long as we are in delusion, that will appear real to us. So, it is not affected by the Ananta Koti Brahmanda. It is the Swananda. It remains alipta or untouched from everything that is there. Then, of course, in space, there is the other four among the Panchamahabhuta, space is one Panchamahabhuta. The remaining four Mahabhutas are also there. The Vayu, Agni, Jala and Prithvi. Again, space is untouched by these other Panchamahabhutas, the four Mahabhutas. And though space pervades in and through all the remaining four Mahabhutas, yet in Pralaya Kala, space along with the other four Mahabhutas, they get vileen, they get dissolved during the Mahapralaya. But the space of consciousness doesn't. It is a substratum of that. It is on the pure substratum of that pure consciousness alone, this five Panchamahabhutas and Ananta Koti Brahmanda was projected. So when it gets dissolved, when the waves calm down, nothing happens to the water. Water remains the same. But that space, the Panchamahabhutas have disappeared, waves have disappeared, but water remains. So this pure consciousness doesn't get affected by that also. Similarly, so many examples we can take, like thread. Cloth itself doesn't have any existence without the thread. Everything is thread alone. Thread can be made out of different colors. And from this thread, the cloth can be made. Cloth can be designed into different dresses also. But everything, the bottom line, the substratum of different colors of cloth, different designs, different dresses, all the substratum is the thread alone. The substratum is not affected by what it undergoes, what it appears to undergo. It is not affected by that. Similarly, the famous examples of the painting also, different colors and forms can be painted on the wall. But the reality, the substratum is the wall and not the different colors that are projected in the form of painting on the wall. So when we are not aware of the rope, then there is a delusion of snake. You see? So from the standpoint of the rope, snake never existed at all. Similarly, from the standpoint from the absolute self, Nothing else have any existence at all. It is ekameva advitiya. So, as all pervading as space is untouched by dust and darkness and whatever goes on in space, so also this Chidakasha, the space of consciousness, is untouched by the Panchakoshas and their modifications. The body, mind, intellect, equipment, the senses, the pranas, their modification, it remains untouched by that. At the Vyashti level and at the Samashti level, they remain untouched. So though Sarvavyapi pervades everything, but remains untouched. So now here Hastamlaka concluded that Atma I am. Sanitya Upalabdha Swarupa Aham Atma. So he concluded here, Sanitya Upalabdha Swarupa Aham Atma. That is, which is available to us every moment. Whether the form is there or not there, that is always there. Whether anything is there or not there, the space is there. In space, so many things happen. The pure consciousness is always there. And here he concludes his answer to the questions raised by Adi Shankaracharya. Then, of course, a guru will be all excited coming across such a realized master, and then pleased with the narration of Hastamlaka. Now, Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya concludes this stotra. Of course, this dialogue is there. He asked the question, then in the 12 shlokas, Hastamlaka said who he is, explained it very well, and concluded with the prayer. And then later, Adi Shankaracharya made these 14 shlokas into a stotra form and titled it as Hastamlaka Stotra. So the concluding shloka, 14 shloka, Upadhau yata bhedata sanmanina tata bhedata buddhi bhedeshu tepi yatha chandrikanam jale chanchalatvam tatha chanchalatvam tavapiha Vishnu. Upadhau yatha भेदता सन्मणिनाम तथा भेदता बुद्धि भेदेषु ते अपि यथा चंद्रिकाणाम जले चंचलत्वम तथा चंचलत्वम तव अपि इह Vishnu. Now, Upadi Bhedata. Everything appears differently, though there is one non-dual self and nothing else. Everything appears differently. Now, that Supreme Lord Vishnu, this is a prayer to Lord Vishnu, that you are all pervading and you are the self of all. That is omnipresent everywhere. You alone exist everywhere. Then Vishnu yatha sanmaninam upado bhedata tatha te api buddhi bhedeshu. So Vishnu. Now, though it is one only and then appears as so many, here the example Adi Shankaracharya quotes is of the crystal. So when a crystal is placed on a black cloth or black background, it will appear like black. Against a red, it will appear red. Against blue, it will appear blue. But crystal itself has got no color. It is colorless. So also, when all colors are removed, only the pure crystal is seen. So similarly, when all upadhis are, one is dissatisfied with all the upadhis, only I amness alone remains. This I will shine in 3 dimensions at the level of Sat, Chit, and Ananda. The existence absolute, awareness, pure awareness absolute, and pure infinite bliss or bliss absolute. So, as the colors block the vision of crystal as it is, according to color, we say, okay, there is some red object or a black object or a blue object or a yellow object and so on. The colors are blocking the vision of this crystal. So also obstruction by the body, mind, intellect equipment, the upadhis and their modification and identification with the upadhis and their modification blocks our awareness of the Satchidananda Rupa, the self. So through inquiry, proper analysis is required to get rid of this wrong identity, to remove this superimposition or the identification with upadhis and to realize this pure self. Yatha chandrikanam jale chanchalatvam iha tava api chanchalatvam. Now another example which Adi Shankaracharya quotes here is that moon reflected in the different bodies of water appear differently. So in a steady water, it will appear steady. In a moving water, it will appear as if it is moving, and so on. Chanchalatvam. So similarly, now this pure self also, that which is reflected in different mind intellect equipment, they appear differently. So somebody will appear like Rama, somebody will appear like Ravana, but that which is manifesting through Rama and through Ravana is the same pure self alone. Though depending upon the mind intellect equipment, this is what appears. And of course, many examples have been cited here. So as moon, if identified with the reflection, if moon identifies with the reflection in the ocean, and when the waves dash to the rocks, so of course the moon will land in trouble. That I am that, and then the reflection will break into several pieces when the waves dash. So similarly, when we identify with the body, mind, intellect equipment, this is what happens to us. So Jiva also, when it identifies with this Panchakoshas, body, mind, intellect equipment, suffers because of this wrong identity superimposed on the pure self, which is subject to modification every moment. But the pure self is not affected, as gold remains the same. The superimposition of the names and forms of ornaments doesn't affect it. It doesn't affect the moon. When we see the moon through the moving clouds, it will appear as if the moon is moving in the opposite direction of the cloud, but actually the clouds are moving, not the moon. So the movement of the cloud doesn't affect the moon. Similarly, the reflection in the pot also, when it breaks, it doesn't affect that which is reflected in the pot, water. And then another example which is given here is that sugar cane is black, rough and hard, whatever it may be, but the sugarcane juice will be always sweet. It will not affect the taste of the sugarcane juice. So obviously, from the standpoint of the pure self, there is no such thing as bondage or liberation. No bandha, no moksha. The self has always been free, one without a second. Only it is our ignorance, our wrong identities, That is all that is there. And every time Hastamalaka kept saying, Sa Nitya Upalabdha. Sa Nitya Upalabdha is the important word that we have to pick up from this Hastamalaka Stotram. Sa Nitya Upalabdha. That should continuously go on in our head. Sa Nitya Upalabdha. That which is always available. Now, in this very moment. Sa Nitya Upalabdha. So it is not somewhere yonder. You don't have to go anywhere. So after the conclusion of this, at the end, Adi Shankaracharya takes the boy away with him because he told his parents, this boy is of no use to you. So let me take him. And this way, we conclude this very subtle text called Hastamlaka Stotra. Now, we have done the Shravana Sadhana. Now the Manana Sadhana and Nididhyasana Sadhana begins. So we'll make a beginning today for the Manana and Nididhyasana Sadhana. So I'll chant the first shloka. Acharya Uvacha. Kastvam Shishokasya Kuto Siganta Kim Nama Te Tvam Kuto Kuta Agatosi Etan Mayoktam Vadacharvakatvam Matpritaye Priti Vardhanosi. So now begins the Shravana Sadhana, the questions put by Adi Shankaracharya to Hastamalaka. So now imagine this question that is put to us, and now we have to give the answer. The next following shlokas will give the answer. That is the Manana and Nididhyasana that we have to do. With this, we conclude this very subtle text. Now, anybody has got anything, any question to ask?
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Swamiji, what has not been covered, the distance in last 2 years, I think we have covered in last 1 month through these 14 shlokas. Now, the question is, the people like us who are attending this last 2 years, we have left, in our understanding, we have left the bank of all the upadhis. We have left definitely in our understanding. And slowly and gradually, we are proceeding towards the destination, which is self. We have not yet reached Swamiji, but in understanding only we have reached. And there is a clarity about what is these upadhis with which we have identified and what is our real self. Now, Swamiji, my question comes here. We were all upasak. Isn't it that we are not clutching to the self, but we are now living to the upasana part of it? So what is your advice to us, Swamiji?
Upasana is also part of sadhana. In the initial stages, we all begin with upasana only, we begin with. And as I have been telling, so many times I have been telling, there are only two paths to realization of self, bhakti and jnana. And both paths will lead to the same destination. So, bhakti and jnana for different temperament people. All other paths are only an aid to these two paths. So depending upon that, we follow the path, whichever is suitable for us, whichever we find easy for us, that path has to be followed. I will say that when I was in Sandipani, I have observed among the brahmacharis and brahmacharinis We had all come at our Gurudev's feet for the study of the scriptures, for the Shravan sadhana, for Vedantic sadhana. And yet, I observed that though that was the common factor among all of us, but I observed that some people were very had lot of bhakti bhava. So they were devotees also, bhakta also, and they are listening to Vedanta also. Some people were more into karma kanda rituals and all that, puja path and rituals and upasana and all that, and yet they were listening to Vedanta. Some people were karma yogis, whatever work has to be done in the ashram, and they'll volunteer first and they'll go for that. So those people were also there among us and listening to Vedanta. Then there were others who were into yoga. So they will do their yoga also and listen to Vedanta. And there were others who were more into meditation. So they'll be into meditation and yet they'll be listening to Vedanta. So all of us were there. The common factor was we had come at our Gurudev's feet to listen to this Vedanta, to have this Shravan sadhana. And definitely we'll walk our own path and reach our own goal, the same goal, but at two different ways we'll reach the same goal. So somebody will be Jnani Bhakta, somebody will be Jnani Karma Yogi, somebody will be Jnani Yogi, somebody will be Jnani, and like that it will be. So Jnana will be the common part, and there are other things will be also there. So that is how it is. So even if we have been Upasak, it doesn't matter. We can progress.
But Swamiji, the thing is, after I understood the importance of contemplation, even after I understood that the what do you call the apparent duality is not real, upasana becomes little difficult. Meditation comes, contemplation comes very easily, because if I do the upasana, say chanting the Gayatri mantra or this mantra, as we learned in Ram Gita, when the upadhis are involved in the sadhana, it will take us outside. Unless we transcend the upadhis, we cannot meet, have what do you call it? We cannot meet the self, you see, or rather realize the self, or at least appreciate that there is something like self. So we are halfway. Therefore, there is a conflict which is going on in mind. In that sense, that now it is understood that nothing but contemplation will ultimately require. Upasana will, as the stage of upasana, as far as I am concerned, the stage of upasana is over now. Only thing what is required is nothing but Shravan, more than Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasa.
Yes.
So, what is your advice to me rather, or in general?
In general, of course, now for you, you are very clear. So you have gone beyond that upasana stage and more into contemplation. So for you, it is mananam and nididhyasana more focused on that. For others, because everybody will be at the different levels of evolution, spiritual evolution. Okay. On the spiritual path, of course, spirituality is only one. There are no stages in spirituality, but we may be at different levels of evolution on the spiritual path, how we progress. So there is not, that is the greatness of Sanatana Dharma. There is not one suit we stitch and ask everybody to fit into that. No. Sanatana Dharma, the beauty is that the dress or the suit is cut according to the size of the person. So the sadhana is according to the temperament of the person. So somebody is comfortable doing upasana, let them do upasana. Somebody is comfortable in the Shravana sadhana, let them do Shravanam or Mananam and Nididhyasana. Somebody is comfortable in meditation, meditating on what he has already heard. So let them be that. So according to that, the temperament is there. So let them continue with that. As we progress, the previous sadhana drops off. This was also discussed in when we did Sri Ram Gita. that it will drop off of its own accord as we progress on the path. The earlier sadhanas, as a sadhak that we used to do, that will no more be there. It will automatically drop off as we progress further, higher and higher. Then we are more focused on the contemplation part, the reflection and contemplation, mananam and nidhyasanam.
Thank you, Swami. Anybody else? Any question? Swamiji, now when is the exam? And
Can Pankaj bhai,
yeah,
can I ask one
yeah,
question?
go ahead, go
Yes,
ahead, go ahead.
yes, please go ahead.
Uh, Swamiji, you said in chapter 11, means not chapter 11, verse 11,
Huh.
39, they say that like we are who act differently according to their own past impressions, like intelligent and consciousness, and individual who act differently according to their own past impression. So means past impressions means previous birth or all past births.
All
And
past.
how it is balanced, who balances all this, that for this karma this is a pal, this is like, who balances all those things?
That is Prakriti. You see? So Prakriti, all the because the entire creation is by Prakriti, and Prakriti has got all the data, so to say, of each and every jiva and their karmas. So the total cumulative past or total impressions that we gathered in our past life, out of which a few karmas have been fructified, a mixture of good and bad karmas have fructified, and according to that, we will be experiencing joys and sorrows in our life. But externally, we appear in different forms, male and female, and all that thing, different race and all that thing. The quality of our mind and intellect also will be determined by the impressions that we gathered in the previous lives, and the vasanas, they are there, and the sanskaras also, and the quality of life that we lived in our previous lives. And that will determine it. So externally, we may all appear different, but of course, we are the same pure self. There is no difference in that. Externally, we may all appear different, but we are the same pure self. So this Vasana Kshaya has to be done, so that every life, what we need to do is that we have to, as much as possible, reduce the vasanas without creating new vasanas, without creating new impressions, without creating new sanskaras, and without creating new karmic bondage. That is what happens. But for millions of lives we live because we exhaust some of the vasanas and we create new vasanas. We exhaust certain karmic bondage, we exhaust, and then we create new karmic bondage. And that is how we go from one life to another life, and so on. This is what happens. So, at one point in time, we have to realize that we have been taken for a royal ride. Enough is enough. And then we start reversing the flow, not continuously flowing in the wrong direction. When we realize that, we start reversing it. So this is how we have to go. We are all the same. We are all the pure self, nothing less than that. Only these upadhis are causing the problem, and our identification. More important is that let the upadhis be there, it doesn't matter. But our identification is so strong with that upadhi that is causing all the problem. So slowly we have to start our spiritual life by being a witness on what is happening within us, in our body, in our mind, in our intellect, on our senses, what is going on in our mind, what is going on in our intellect. When we keep on being a witness to what is happening there, slowly that Sakshi Bhava is there, and then we don't get carried away by whatever is happening. We understand, we accept things, whatever it may be, and then move on. That is the important part of it. So a time will come, and as I said, Hastamlaka emphasized on this Nitya Upalabdha. Nitya Upalabdha, however, whatever our condition may be, we may think that we are very far away from the absolute truth or something like that. It is not so. It is Nitya Upalabdha. It's always available to us. That thought should be there, and that that thought should be like a lighthouse or a beacon in the darkness. We have to look at that, and that should give us hope. That should revive us, and we should never go into despair. You see, for a ship which is lost in the ocean in the dark night, and then it sees a lighthouse, and that gives us hope, and it keeps moving towards that. So that is that Nitya Upalabdha. In this state of my ignorance also, I am the same pure self. So that has to be always in our mind.
Yeah, but when we say that my conscious is not permitting me to do this, then that time what this it is our intellect is enlivened by consciousness, or how it is?
Intellect is enlivened by consciousness, and you are not the intellect, you are the consciousness, pure consciousness.
Conscious.
Yeah, consciousness has got nothing to do with anything. It is untouched by anything that is happening. All the modification that is going on in the mind or the intellect or anything like that, it has got nothing to do with that. Only we get affected when we get identified. The identification is the problem. So that is how we get affected. Otherwise, consciousness is pure, untouched.
But conscious,
Mind can entertain good or bad feelings, or intellect can entertain good or bad thoughts, but the pure self is not affected by that. It doesn't become bad when the bad thought manifests in the intellect, or it doesn't become good if a good thought manifests in the intellect. No, it is not affected by that. And this good and bad is again part of pairs of opposites. Dvandva only.
but
So
good and bad, we get result of it, no? Though it is not consciousness only enlivened, but we get the result, no?
yeah, so Viveka is that we have to use our Viveka to understand what is real, what is unreal, what is eternal, what is ephemeral, what is truth and what is untruth, what is Nitya and what is Anitya, what is self and what is not self. And all that is unreal, untruth, not self, ephemeral, we have to keep away from that, or at least we should not get carried away by that as much as possible. Or we have to do just because we have to deal in this world, we have to live in this world, and we have to deal with the world around us. So obviously, we have to keep the appearances, but not get carried away by that. We should understand it very well.
Thank you, Swamiji. Hari Om Sir.
Swamiji, now what is next?
So next is now we have to contemplate. This is a very subtle text.
Yes.
So the Mananam and Nididhyasan has to go on. Shravana Sadhana is over.
Yes.
We'll see what next text to take, because now I'm in Dehradun and I have not decided what text to take, and it should be available to me here also. Unfortunately, I didn't bring. I'll see if I can find out. There is a Chinmaya Mission Center here in Dehradun also. I don't know whether it is still there or not there. Let me see.
I can arrange to send you Swamiji in Dehradun.
It's that we can make arrangement, something like that. I'll see what text we can take. Otherwise, I'll be here till this month, and next month I'll come to Mumbai. So I've got to visit some places also here. I've just been to Uttarkashi and returned from there. I have to go to Rishikesh and Haridwar also.
But Swamiji, we do not want a very long waiting now.
No, hopefully not. Let us see.
Our contemplation and everything will definitely go ahead. But we are always looking for the next one. Exam will be there, Swamiji, for this.
So there will be no exam for HASTAMALAK STROTAM. Now we are all experts, you see.
Swamiji, we require question answer session at least to understand more deeply.
Is it?
Hari Om Swamiji, we require question answer session for understanding more. Exam is there or not, that is not important, but question answer, because some clarity we require to be done.
I see. Okay.
Swamiji, I personally feel that question answer should be there session provided before that, contemplation must have gone.
Yeah. Question answer session, we can have question answer session on this HASTAMALAK Stotra. Maybe that we can do.
Yeah.
So now in this, every shloka is a very important thing, you see. Every
Yes.
shloka has got so many parts of it. So then we can have a session, maybe we'll give a break of a week or two, you contemplate on that, and then we'll have a session on this question answer session we'll have on this.
Swamiji, take home today is that sun can illumine everything, but not the intellect. And even sun, whatever that sun illumines, cannot be. If the self does not illumine the intellect, we cannot see. Now, thing is that we pray Gayatri Mantra, for example, for the sun only, isn't it, Swamiji? So how it is related, Swamiji?
What we are praying is to the Son of Suns.
Okay, right.
Okay, it is the Son of Suns, and the Son of Sun is the pure self and nothing else. That which illumines even the sun. So we are Vedantic students, you see.
Exactly.
So we have to go to the Lakshartha and not be carried away by the Shabdartha, the Vachyartha.
Now the problem with us is that everything we see in the world is nothing but illusions.
Yes.
And maybe misleading, Illusion.
Yeah,
always
misleading. So when you see this world around you, when you have understood the reality of this, then what happens is that whatever may be happening there, you will never take anything seriously.
Right.
Okay. Once you understand that there is no reality to the outside world, it's only an appearance. And then what happens is then we never take anything seriously. Then the entire existence is an encyclopedia of jokes.
Yeah.
Then even if you want to, you cannot become serious.
Exactly.
See? And actually, as a spiritual seeker, we should never be serious. We should be sincere, no doubt. We should be carefree, but not careless.
Right. Okay, Swamiji, so we'll be meeting on 27th.
Yeah, so we'll have it on 29th.
29th will be, today is what? Today's 13th.
13th. So when is the next one coming? 27th.
Next one is
27th.
30th. 27th.
27th. So we'll have it on 27th, a question answer session.
Question answer or exam, right? We call it exam, Swamiji.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exam.
Swamiji, why we are not having on the 20th?
20th? Well, it is a separate text. I thought that I should give you enough time.
Okay. Okay, Swamiji.
So at least 2 weeks, a gap is there. So we'll have it on the 27th.
Yeah, we'll revise in the meantime.
So though there are only 14 shlokas, but it is very subtle.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So we have to spend more time on that.
Yeah.
So we'll conclude now.
Yes, Swamiji.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah Harihi Om.